everybody. I'm Marcos.
And I'm Kirsten.
And this is the Minnesota Real Estate Investing Podcast.
Join us every week as we discuss real estate investing in the land of 10,000 lakes. Last time, we've had twice now where we've fucked shit up, so we need to make sure we have something.
Let's not edit that out, though. I want to hear you say, let's not fuck it up this time.
I swear a lot, and I said that in the last one. I'm just I'm not gonna pretend that's not who I am. That's just who I am.
So I was part of kind of the huge wind where esports was really taking off and the online gambling snafu that was occurring. And the big question that people kept asking was, if your kids think that they're good enough to become an esports professional, do you then encourage more video game use in their life? And I think it's kind of a tough question because you can make a lot of money and it's short term. So if they do well, their peak performance is from 14 to basically 19 before their fingers and their reaction times start to go down. And so to me, it's kind of an interesting route. Now, I myself, I'm no, that excuse will never work on me.
Yeah.
It is very small percentages of people that will make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, you have my genes, so I know what happens when you click the E button too much.
Yeah. I don't even know what esports is, just professional athletes that are...
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, electronic athlete or whatever.
Yeah,
okay.
Precisely. In fact, one conversation that we once had was with the Olympic Committee and seeing if we were going to turn esports into an Olympic sport.
No.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
Yes.
What do you think about that? Because to me, that's ridiculous. Because you're not using your body. You're using your mind.
Well, I have an argument for that.
Yeah, I would totally disagree.
Because if you consider F1 and all the, racing a car.
That is still physical, though. My dad races
cars,
so.
Okay, but when you're actually playing video games, your focus, your reaction needs to be just as good as a race car driver.
Yeah,
your
probably better.
Movements in your hands and coordination to do certain combos or to do certain
But you're sitting
skills.
In a chair. You're just using your hands.
You're
sitting in a chair in a car, too.
In video games, there's something called reps per minute. So that's how many clicks on the mouse or on your keyboard you're doing per minute. And so when I played video games, I was around 50 RPMs. A professional gamer can be close to 600. So they're literally clicking and making decisions that fast. So I would say
from a Rubik's Cube people.
So 600, that would be about 10 per second or
10
more.
10 clicks per second. Yeah. 10 functions per second.
So
still though, so that's just your hand. So that's a hand.
But a driver's kind of the same thing, right? I mean, sure, you get, stuff like that.
But you're using your hand.
But your body, I guess it's the same argument. Your body is controlling the car, I guess your body's controlling the controller. Yeah. I don't know, Anyways, that is a tangent, you guys.
Totally, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our podcast. We are here with Hadley Hornig, and we're going to be talking about his experience in real estate. We're very excited to have him today. We're at the VSM offices today, and we'll be talking a lot. Hopefully you enjoy this show. We're very excited.
All right, so let's start.
Excellent intro.
Yeah. You don't know what happens behind the scenes. So we always like to start off with your history and how you got into real estate, and I want to know, of course, we were talking before about Hornig properties and all of that, so just give us the lowdown.
Yeah, so I feel like most people at this point have read the Kiyosaki Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and so I was very fortunate to have a rich dad in my life, and then my dad had the original rich dad in the Hornig family. So my grandfather was the first one to invest in real estate. The first multifamily was purchased in 1963. Since then, he had 4 sons. All of them worked in the real estate industry. They would go and shovel. They'd work their butts off to make sure that the place was running smoothly. And their favorite day was collecting coins at the laundry stations.
Oh, yeah.
So they go in there and take all the stuff out of the laundry. So that was their favorite point. Since then, the Hornig property portfolio has grown significantly since. We feel, again, very fortunate that it's something that's going to create generational wealth, not just for me, but for future generations of Hornigs. And since then, I took the same principles that my dad's given me, and I've invested in real estate as well.
Yeah. So you think that had a big impact on you growing up? Like, what did you see growing up your dad doing, and like, did you see him investing and he talked to you about that and what you do with your money and how you make it grow and everything?
Yeah, so my dad was an estate planner, so especially his whole career was understanding and maintaining wealth, right? So at all times when speaking to him and understanding kind of what he did as a job, he was very good at explaining how he was able to use the tax system to our advantage. And the best way to do that, from his point of view, was through real estate, through write-offs, deductions, tax credits, etc. And so, listening to that and seeing how he continually purchased real estate even when he had his 3 kids showed me that it wasn't luxury that was of the utmost interest to him. It was about creating wealth for us and for future generations.
That's amazing. That's so cool. That's what we hope to do with our kids too.
Definitely.
So you grew up seeing that and having that, experience. So how has that impacted what you're doing now? Tell us about all the things you're doing now.
Sure. So, the easiest way of starting it is my wife is a wonderful, wonderful human being. And she helps me along the process, and she's really grown to love it. But I'll tell you what, when we first started out, when I convinced her somehow to move here to Minnesota, she said she wanted new construction. And the very first thing I made her buy was a Northeast duplex that needed about $100,000 of rehab.
Oh my gosh, how did you do that? I could tell we would get along well.
It was interesting. We came out of the duplex, and I saw her face the entire time during the tour. She just turned white as a ghost. And she's just, bless her heart, she saw how much I loved that property. Yeah. And she said, let's do it. She's like, I see it, I get it, let's do it. And so we started kind of our house hacking journey from there. And
cool.
Yeah.
When was that?
That was January of 2020 when we put the offer in on the house.
Okay, awesome. So
just before COVID and George Floyd.
Okay. I never asked you, where was your duplex in Northeast?
I still have it.
Yeah.
It's operating as a short-term rental and a long-term rental.
Oh, cool.
And that's right near the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
So it's off of 5th Avenue Southeast.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Ours was in Wade Park.
Okay.
So different area.
Sure.
So do you guys rent to students?
Our first tenant upstairs was a student. She actually had her PhD, getting her PhD, which to me was the best perfect tenant of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Her parents were guarantors, and it was just like a perfect tenant. The people that
rent was being paid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We were set, and she was. Listen, we were homesteading, so I was allowed to be discriminatory on a few things, yes. And I got the perfect tenant for myself. This next one was actually even better. It was a couple, and they are handymen, and so the whole time when there was an issue, they'd be like, "We could just do it."
Every landlord wants to handyman.
And I was like, "That's amazing! You're telling me I don't have to find somebody to do this?
Yeah,
great."
Exactly.
And so they've just been phenomenal tenants. And then on the bottom, it's been a whole hodgepodge of different demographics that I was not anticipating. Summer is mostly wedding season, and that's where we uptick our rates, and we're pretty much booked the entire time there. Fall is typically football season for the U of M, so we've seen a lot of people come in for football games. and things of that nature, and then wanting to be in the Northeast and North Loop area.
Okay.
But, for the most part, the vast majority, I would say, are people that are just coming through the state.
Yeah.
Just
interesting.
one-night stays.
And you allow one-night stays?
We do. Just at that property. At our other short-term rentals, we do not allow that.
Okay. So tell me now about your other properties then.
Sure. So when I was living in New York City, I was luckily making enough money to also invest with my siblings. So I have 4 multifamily properties that I now own with my brother and sister here in Uptown, Minneapolis. That totals about 32 units. And then since I've moved back, my wife and I have been house hacking throughout that period of time. So we only have the duplex. We have our house that we house hacked in Plymouth that we've now moved out of. We had a very horrible experiment in Stillwater to try and short-term rental there. And then,
really?
Yes, I can jump into that real quick.
Yeah, write it down, stuff I want you to go over.
And now we live in, hopefully, our forever home in Wayzata.
Okay, yeah, we talked about that. That's awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so you own those other multifamily properties with your brothers and sisters?
Correct. And my brother directly manages those properties.
Okay. Are those from, how would you get those properties?
How did we get them?
Yeah, are they like in the family or whatever? Or how?
The first one, kind of similar to what you guys were talking about, as a gift to, for education. So the very first fourplex that we got was from my dad. So it wasn't a gift. He basically gave us a loan that we eventually paid off through the income generated from the building. And so
that's even better than what we were planning for our kids, actually.
Nothing comes easy.
Yeah, exactly. My dad always talks about, ensuring that the generational wealth that's procured and provided will simply be the frosting on the cake. It will not be the actual base itself. You can't live off of what will actually eventually come.
Man.
Well, he's been in wealth generation and wealth management for years, and so, from that angle, he, like I said, he gifted us that, and then from there we were able to refinance, and basically that's how we've gotten the 4 other properties.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys bought them together?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep. We have an LLC that splits at 33% across the board.
Okay, nice. And how do you split then? Do you split the cash flow?
Yes,
okay.
We do. We ensure that $20,000 is held back for each property, just in case anything bad happens. And then whatever's left over, we just split it down the line. And then obviously my brother gets the percentage on managing the properties.
Yeah. It seems that every one of you have a function with your income properties. Is it like that, or like just your brother that's managing?
I would say for the multifamily, it's primarily my brother. It's very much a hands-off thing for me. And in fact, since moving back from Minnesota, we have not done another acquisition. It was really just I have excess cash, and I don't know anything about the stock market, and so I'm just gonna send it into things that I know from growing up with my dad and being around it all my life. And so I would just ship it off to my siblings, and they would find a property.
That's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because that's the same way we feel about stock market. I always wanted to kind of get into it a little bit, but learning another skill in investing right now is like, I know real estate, I know how to do this, so I'm going to focus on this. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs a home.
Yeah.
The real estate's never going away, and from what I can tell, we'll continue to procreate more than lose in our population, and so we'll just continue to need more housing. At that point, I just kind of think, why try and divert from something that's been working? Now, the one thing that I have been thinking about is, and I've been talking to my siblings about, is do we try and sell one of our Minneapolis properties and move it to another city or another location where we feel a little bit better about the situation?
Yes.
Now, we made a really smart decision. When I say we, I mean my brother. He proposed when COVID and George Floyd hit that we do a pretty significant drop in all of our rents. And so that's what we ended up doing. We dropped most of our rents by $100 to $200 in the effort to keep the tenants that we really, really liked. Yeah. And it worked. We kept very, very high, no vacancies across the board. And, obviously rents are basically back, if not even higher than when we used to be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, you asked kind of huge overview trend. Mm-hmm. We have noticed a massive drop in single females living in uptown Minneapolis.
I'm not surprised at all.
It's not surprising, but, I mean, when you hear it, you're like, oh, yeah. Makes total sense, but we barely see any single females.
Yeah, it's dangerous now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And it crushes my dad every day.
I know. We loved Uptown. We lived there off of 34th and Fremont in a duplex.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We loved it, and
it's
so different now.
When my wife and I first moved here, we were living on 28th and Emerson.
Oh, we were so close.
Yeah, we were so close, and it was scary. Like, we could see the flames and the smoke from George Floyd because we were still living there at the time. Yeah, because remember, we needed to put $100,000 into the duplex, and so it wasn't move-in ready by any stretch of the imagination. So we had to stay in our uptown place a little bit longer than we wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have friends that have told me things about that. Like, I had to get away in the middle of the night because I would have been burned. Like, some people got their apartments burned and all that stuff, or their homes, and it's just insane what happened.
Yeah, I mean, so my wife and I, we walked around uptown while it was obviously happening, right? And we're going off a total tangent, but we just remember talking to a lot of property owners where their businesses were wrecked and things were stolen, and they were like, "How did this have anything to do with George Floyd?" This makes no sense. I'm just operating a business here. And I did not, essentially, I did not kill George Floyd, was the sentiment that we caught.
It's that mentality of the public when they start going crazy,
it's the mass mentality.
Stuff. Yeah, that mass.
Looters gotta loot.
Yeah, so.
Well, I suffered that in Argentina. In 2001, we had a huge crisis. I think I talked about it a couple of times in the podcast already, but
I missed it though. I'm a little curious.
So in 2001, we had, up until then during the 90s, we had a match 1-to-1 with the dollar, which helped a lot to stabilize the economy. It flourished basically.
Sure.
However, when they took it off of that, because it wasn't real. It was called I'm trying to translate it in my head right now. I think it's something like convertibility.
Okay.
So it worked, but it wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be temporary. Mm-hmm. It wasn't supposed to be there forever. When they took it off, then inflation started hitting because the peso wasn't equal to the dollar, the Argentinian peso. Like you have, the dollar from United States, number one country in the world, and you have Argentina, who used to be the second United States, and back in 1920. Then we tried socialism and. Don't do that.
Okay.
But so.
Don't get political.
Yeah, no. I'm Argentinian. I mean, how can I not get political? But so 2001 hit, they removed it, and so overnight, basically, the whole country lost about 20% of the power, purchase power.
People lost all their, the banks had to take people's money out of their accounts.
So there was a famous phrase of one of the politicians at the time, and he was saying, people need to understand that their money is not good. And everyone was like, so there were riots. I mean, can you imagine? Because not only we weren't there yet with, being a great economy, but at this, it was kind of getting back to be some, because we had another crisis 10 years prior to that too. Oh, no. And before that we had the Falkland Wars and then the dictatorship, and keep counting since the 20th century wasn't good to Argentina. And so you had riots. We had 5 presidents in a week or something like that, because everyone was quitting. The president that did that quit and had to leave our version of the White House in a helicopter because people were going to kill him.
I'm sure.
30 people were killed or something in the riots and protests, and it was something similar to that. Like then all these people just, and that's what happens a lot in Argentina too when there's a big protest.
Yeah.
People just start breaking the streets, businesses, and all that kind of thing. Is like that's affecting the working normal people like you. It's not because now the owner is gonna probably have to shut down.
Yes.
You go keep going.
Okay. The owner is gonna have to shut down.
That would be great. Thank you.
The worker there, since you're shutting down, is not gonna be able to go to work. So
Right.
probably they're not gonna get paid for those days or weeks. Who knows how long? So it's all the same thing. It's like you think you're benefiting someone, you're not. You're actually making it much harder for much more people when you do that kind of stuff.
Yes.
That when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I have to come to United States to see this. What I was not running away from, because I came here because I fell in love with her, and otherwise I probably wouldn't be. Well, maybe I would be in the United States, but maybe in Florida or somewhere warmer.
How did you guys meet?
I was backpacking in Argentina.
No way. During the riots.
No. 2010, right?
Yeah, 2010, Christmas Eve New Year's Eve,
That's when I met.
2010.
Yeah.
We met in Patagonia in a hostel. One of my friends told me to go there to visit another friend who got a job managing a hostel there. And I quit my job and went there, just decided to start my life completely new.
Blank slate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when I met her.
Yeah, we were friends for a while.
Mhm.
And then we became not friends. And
Nice.
started traveling together. Yes. And then I was like, okay, I think I'll move to Argentina. And then I moved there for was it 9 months? And then
Something like that.
yeah, and then I was like, yeah, no, not living here. So
Okay.
we were living in literally an abandoned house. So
Oh.
It wasn't an abandoned house, but
it was. But yeah, so there were roaches everywhere.
We don't need descriptors.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was shelter.
Yeah.
It was shelter. It wasn't my parents. I was happy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so
Kirsten, you want to bring us in here? Sorry that we.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're gonna keep talking.
Fascinating
about,
stuff. But
we'll just keep on going.
Mhm.
I get antsy, as you can tell. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go water, and
Yeah.
I gotta answer my mom, coffee. So do you guys only invest in multifamily, or do you have any?
Guys being the Hornig family.
Well, let's talk Hornig family and you.
Okay.
Like, do you have plans in single family? I think Hornig is just multifamily, right?
Yeah, the Hornigs are just multifamily.
Okay.
We got a single family because it was part of a portfolio.
Okay.
But other than that, no, it's primarily multifamily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the best way to go, multifamily? Just,
When it comes down to a cost per unit basis, yeah.
Yeah.
When you're trying to create scale and you have a really good system, I don't see why you would do anything else, really.
Yeah. So what do you see now with this market? Like, I've noticed this, obviously the inventory is so low, it's really hard to find multifamily properties, let alone cash flowing multifamily properties.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting into, we don't know a lot about the more expensive deals that,
Mhm.
we're looking below $1 million usually.
Sure.
But what can you say about that?
I would assume that the seller financing would be the way to go at this point. It's really tough to make the current financing structure work.
Yeah.
As far as as particularly if you're looking at 8 units or less, that can be really difficult. From our standpoint, we've kind of slowed down our acquisition strategy, partly because of our confidence in Minneapolis in general.
Mm-hmm.
We think it's stable,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not something where we're actively saying we need to buy more.
Mm-hmm.
Without seller financing, I think one thing that we're curious to see happen is what happens to all these massive type Class A developments.
Yeah.
They're
That are being built now.
that are getting built right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are they actually going to look like long term? Because
Yeah.
they're going to be on some sort of arm, right? And then they're going to have to go
Yeah.
on some sort of fixed rate later on. And during all this time, rates have tripled since they first started on their construction. And so all of their assumptions have completely gone out the window, and they're going to be in some really hairy situations.
Yeah.
We don't buy any Class A. We barely have it. I don't think we have any. We've only bought Class B properties.
Okay.
And that's where we like to stay because there's not a lot of competition
Yeah.
in that area. When you're playing in that realm of kind of the 10 to 30 million, those are easier plays than when you're looking at hundreds of millions. Then you're dealing with basically national level hedge funds, people of that nature that are purchasing these.
You know absolutely nothing about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, essentially there are a lot of big players.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you know at the very least that hedge funds up until earlier this year have been just picking up multitudes of single-family properties.
You know that.
In fact, Q4 of last year, it hit record high 33% of all single-family homes were purchased by an LLC of some kind.
Yeah, and that's
So it's fascinating, and it's going to get harder for the regular American to purchase a property. But from my standpoint, I'm very happy with my current portfolio.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be doing anything unless a killer deal just shows up on my doorstep.
Okay, so you're not really looking to acquire more. You're just kind of
Not at the moment.
that's a nice place to be.
Yeah, at the moment, at this point, I'm helping my mom create her generation, her kind of passive income here, and so we created a partnership, and we are going to do a short-term rental for her in the suburbs of Minneapolis. But other than that, we're kind of just wanting to enjoy our house.
Yeah.
Because we've been here for 3 years and we've bought 3 homes, so we haven't had any relaxation because of the house hacking, and that's all my fault.
Yeah, we totally understand.
So I'm ready to finally help my wife relax and just enjoy an actual Minnesota summer for once.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because especially our job is during the summer, usually.
Yes.
Like construction and anything that you do with houses, summer is when
They want to do it, and it's like, but that's when I want to relax, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So
I get that, because we were basically doing that since we bought our duplex, then we bought our single family home and did all the work on that house, and I was like, no, we're moving to this townhome, which is going to become a rental. It was built in 2017, so it's like you don't need to do anything. We changed the light fixtures,
Yeah.
So you got your new construction.
Yeah, but
Nice.
it's not a dream home. It's a smaller home. We downsized to just not have to clean as much, and then we don't have to do any yard work and stuff, and we're gonna rent it. But it's nice to not have to do anything. 'Cause
Sure.
It's just so stressful doing all that work all the time. But the goal is to pay somebody to do that for you eventually. So that's maybe new construction for our next house. We'll see.
Maybe we build it ourselves.
Yeah, you can dream big.
Yes.
So you said you guys house hacked in Plymouth.
Yes.
How did you find a duplex in Plymouth, or what was
Just
it?
single family.
Okay.
Like I said, George Floyd was happening, and unfortunately my truck got looted 3 times when I was living in Northeast Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything too valuable in there, although I kept buying the same Costco speaker, and they must have been like, look, you bought another one. So they stole it twice from my truck.
Oh my god.
But after that, I just said, we got to find something in the suburbs and just kind of enjoy a stable life.
Yeah.
So we just bought a single family there.
Okay.
It wasn't that big of a house hack. It probably needed $30,000 in renovations, nothing too crazy.
Okay.
The kitchen was already rehabbed.
Oh, okay.
And lived there for almost a year. And because of the Stillwater fiasco, we we found ourselves in a position where we could not get a short-term rental license in Stillwater, and we already purchased a home. And at that point, I was getting very frustrated, obviously, by the payments that I had to make on something that was just sitting. So I said to my wife, what do you think about testing out Plymouth as a short-term rental. We had already converted the place that we were living in Northeast as a short-term rental. I have no idea if Plymouth will work, but at the very least, we know that the licensing is easier there than Stillwater. And so we went through the process and we struck gold.
Really?
We've had 100% no vacancy in
Do you
Plymouth.
still have it?
Still have it.
Okay.
I mean, we're making hand over fist money.
Let's get a short-term rental.
Yeah, we're very thrilled.
You bought it in 2020 though, so that was a good year to buy it.
We bought it in 2020. I somehow put in an offer on this house and said I need to know by 11 a.m. and thankfully nobody else put in an offer, and so we were able to get it at asking during the craze of 2020.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interest rates were low.
Yes.
Well, that's also how we got our single family. We were the first one there taking a look at it. We actually looked at it twice because of the trailer park.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, are we sure about this? Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
There's still nice homes there. There's brand new construction.
Oh yeah,
Past the trailer park too. So.
one of the new constructions is like $750,000.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not that big of a deal, but sometimes it makes you think like, am I really doing the right thing for long-term investment here? And we did the same thing. Asking price, I actually put in there. I just put it in the contract, 3% contributions, and we went to closing with like $1,700.
Incredible.
Yeah, and we cash flow really well. We cash flow $1,000 a month on that.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
At that price level and with the interest rates that I know that you guys got, because I have something very similar, it's really hard not to cash flow.
I know.
At that price point.
Yeah. So okay.
So I'll just briefly go into the Stillwater fiasco.
Okay.
So we bought a wonderful, totally ready to go place in Stillwater. It was 10 walking blocks from downtown historic Stillwater. And it had a hot tub. It was fully renovated. It was beautiful.
Sounds like perfect.
It was perfect. Yeah. When I called the city, they said they were moving into a new zoning ordinance law where only 15 licenses for short-term rental were going to be applied.
What?
And so I got, licked by. Obviously, I was very excited about that too. I was like, oh my gosh, they built in a clause basically where the inventory is going to be capped. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so I was like, what are the requirements? And they said, well, you need to put in a ramp and you need to do like a couple other things. And I'm like, that's not a problem. Like, we'll be able to make that work. So we then get through the application process. I push it through and it gets denied. And I say, okay, well, what's the issue? And they go, well, the entire house needs to be handicap accessible. And I said, okay, well, what does that mean? They said, well, we need the front entrance to have a ramp, but we also need the back entrance to have a ramp. Not only that, but there needs to be some area of the kitchen where the countertop is at an accessible height.
Yeah.
And then they basically told us we needed to gut the bathroom. Now, let me tell you, this bathroom was gorgeous. It had a jacuzzi tub. It was heated flooring. Like, this was a beautiful bathroom. It was actually the biggest reason why my wife loved this house. She's from New York and she hates the cold, so the heated flooring was very important.
That's huge, yeah.
And so what we thought was going to be a zero renovation cost started to become $30,000. And the reason why I just said, no, I can't do this, and this, we went back and forth, and I talked to the people at the city council for 3 to 4 hours at a time. I'd sit there. Luckily, they gave me the time, but ultimately, I felt like they changed their minds after I'd leave, and then they'd send me an email saying, well, no, that's not going to work anymore. So the biggest breaking point, though, is that I didn't feel that any of the improvements I would do to the house would actually add value.
No.
We were going to rip apart a beautiful bathroom. These ramps were going to be ugly as hell.
Yep.
Probably quite the opposite, actually, if you think about it.
It was going to bring down the value of the house.
Yeah.
And I said, JJ, we're at the perfect time right now where houses are somehow still appreciating. We can get out and maybe actually make money. And so that's what we ended up doing. We didn't do anything to the house. We just furnished it with really nice furniture, and we didn't want any of it, so we were like, we'll sell it with furniture. And we made a $87,000 profit on the house.
Oh my god. That was the best mistake you ever made.
Best, most frustrating reward for definitely.
Wow.
We got super lucky. Yeah. And it was still during the era of no inspection. Yeah. Like just straight up.
Furniture, I bet you anything that furniture really helped because I'm also just staging.
It helped tremendously because when we first bought the house, listen, we know the person that used to own that house. So if they ever hear this podcast, I'm sorry, but it was not staged well. The way that they had the house was not in good position, and we made the necessary changes, and it looked awesome. Yeah. And so I agree with you.
Folks, there's the proof right
there.
Yes,
stage your homes.
Yeah.
Do it.
Amazing. So does Stillwater still have all of those restrictions right now then?
Yes, they still have those restrictions. The last time I checked, I think there's still 10 licenses remaining. And it was fascinating. When I was selling the house, 80% of the people that came in were doing the exact same thing I was trying to do. They were like, this looks like a perfect Airbnb house. And I said, just before you do that, I want to let you know, it's going to cost you this much money. I've already done all the research. I already had to pay an architect $3,000 to just put up the plans. And so, just let it, it all got paid back, so it all worked out right. But, there are a lot of discouraged people leaving that open house for sure.
How would they do that? Stillwater is such the perfect short-term rental city.
Well, not to create gossip, but apparently the owner of the historic inn in downtown Stillwater created the ordinance.
Oh, wow.
And so he came in and said, I don't want all these Airbnbs coming through. So the reason why I got so attracted to Stillwater is I learned that the summer rates are $1,000 a day at the historic inn. And I don't know if you've ever been in that building.
I haven't.
But it's a walking piece of trash. It's
really?
It is not. It's beautiful on the outside, but when you walk in, you're like, whoa, this needs a lot of help.
Why would anybody pay that to stay there?
Because you're right in downtown Stillwater, and there's not enough housing.
God.
You get a wedding of 200 people that come into Stillwater. There's just not enough. And so he said, if 5% of all of my units need to be handicap acceptable, then that should be the case for any Airbnb, rounded up to 100%. And so it's an outrageous rule. I don't know if the gossip is real, but it feels logically I can follow the argument as to why Stillwater would have created such a rule in the first place.
Well, that reminds me of Maple Grove. We did they have that.
They canceled everything, right?
No, they still have the. We knew there was a moratorium buying.
Yeah, the moratorium, right?
Mm-hmm. We knew there was one buying our townhome. It's supposed to end in
July 2023.
Okay.
So we were not planning on moving until after that, but now I'm getting scared because I called the lady and asked about if we could end it early. Because we were thinking maybe, let's just move in the beginning of next year. Now we're going to wait because of that. But, she told me, well, you have to apply for what would she say it was called? Extreme financial difficulty or something. If you didn't sell your house, you would be in extreme finance, or you didn't rent it or something. Mm-hmm. And my excuse was, well, if we cannot sell this for more than we bought it for because the market's gone down, and that wasn't good enough.
Oh, I actually really liked your argument.
Yeah, it didn't mean shit.
Okay.
She did not. She left me a message on my phone, and I called her back. I was like, I would really love an explanation. Never called me back. So I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm just hoping that they do.
Yeah, that they actually ended when they say they were going to end it instead of just keeping it forever. Because that's a risk we decided to take too. Totally. Because we went in there already knowing that was in place and that was in place until July next year. Now, government, they You know,
whatever the
they
hell
do
they
whatever.
want.
Yeah, that's why I've avoided short-term rentals for HOAs. I just have no interest in having another governing body
Yeah.
tell me what I have to do with my property.
Yeah, one is enough.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a municipality can just do something like that. So it's interesting, in Stillwater, all of the current rentals that were Airbnbs prior to the ordinance were grandfathered in.
Yeah.
But if they make any improvement, anything, carpet, any sort of improvement, they have to then go through the process. So these Airbnbs that are there are going to turn into garbage. They can't make any improvements.
Yeah.
They do that, and like, why? Like Maple Grove, why do they make it so they have less housing available? People can't afford to buy a house right now. They need to rent.
Yeah.
Why?
So you can't long-term rent either?
No
Nope.
long term for
Fascinating.
townhomes or single-family homes. If it's multifamily, yes, of
Obviously,
course.
yes.
But no new. But I swear I've seen. Like, I talked to a guy and he's like, well, I just put up my single-family home in Maple Grove instead of selling it. I'm like, I think people must be doing it, like, illegally.
Yeah, without a license, because the thing is not that you can't, is that they're not going to give you a license.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do it without a license, because...
Well, we go through VSM, so, we wouldn't want to put them in that situation either.
Correct.
Yeah, so, yeah. It gets really frustrating with these dumb rules they make.
Yeah. I wonder, so, like, could you just do a contract for deed then and basically become a renter?
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. So we'll see what happens, if they don't decide to pull this moratorium, because we do want to move. This time next year, we want to be looking for our house.
Yeah.
So we will see.
I'm open to everything. Lease option, I can talk to my bank and see what they can do with, maybe assuming the loan or something, for, I mean, I don't think they would, because it's
a loan.
Yeah.
No.
But,
Refinance and then
yeah, I mean, contract for deed sounds great, because if we put in there that they need to pay in 2 years, the totality of it, then we're good with the loan.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care.
That's what I love about real estate. There's so many creative ways to
Solve a problem.
Solve a problem, and we're both problem solvers, and it's just fun, like sitting down, really thinking about it. So
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing about the real estate communities, right? Is everybody's.
There's so much real estate that nobody feels like they have to hoard information.
Exactly.
Everybody can be successful. Everybody can play.
Totally.
And that's why it's been really fun to be in this community for sure since I've been back.
Yeah. The only thing now is the inventory is so low, so we are competing against each other with in the multifamily with multifamily properties. There's just the inventory. So we looked at a duplex the other day with one of our clients, and it had a 1-bedroom, 1-bath on one side, no garage on that side. Other side was 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1-car garage. It was in a really nice street in Crystal. Had a nice big yard. There's no way they were selling it for $380. There's no way you could cash flow on it. The basements, yes, were unfinished, but I don't think legally you could finish them, because when you walk down, your head pretty much hits the ceiling there. So they got multiple offers, like the 4th day on the market still, because there's no properties out there for investors in the multifamily.
And when you talk about no inventory, you're talking outside of the Twin Cities, right?
Probably, because I don't look in Minneapolis.
There's plenty in Uptown.
Is there really? Okay.
Yeah.
And see, I don't even look there because I don't consider there, but what do you think about what's coming on the market? Do you see?
Again, there's some beauties in Uptown Minneapolis. It's just I have no interest at this point.
Do you think you can cash flow on them?
So, every name is allowed to have a short-term rental license. So, in my marriage, we could then split. We would basically quitclaim deed one of us out of our northeast duplex, and then somebody would just singularly own the next place that we'd buy. And I think if you short-term rented it, it could start cash flowing.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the other part that I'm seeing too in Minneapolis. The prices are still high.
Yeah.
And then when you take a look at, it's like what you were saying. When you take a look at the loan that you need to acquire and how you need to structure all your finances to make that property cash flow, it's like, well, can we work out something else? Because it's just not going to happen with what I can get now, you know?
And that's why And that's why. So I I work with a pretty prominent house flipper here in Minneapolis. His name's Glenn Williams at KNG Investments. Excellent. You should definitely sell your house to Glenn if you're in need, because he's awesome. But he was telling me about if I was interested in doing Minneapolis multifamily, that I should find people that can do seller financing at 0% interest at their asking price.
Do you think anyone would do that?
So he's heard several success stories now where people are willing to do that on like a 12 to 20 year, because otherwise they're going to have to go down on their asking price by about $60,000.
Yeah.
So, it's either you take it down or you give them the money that they actually want, and then it's in monthly installments. And so I thought it was pretty brilliant. I really like the idea. And hopefully in a continuing appreciating market, eventually you could just refinance out of that seller financing and do something else.
That's a really interesting, because I think in my head I just thought that like no one would do that, and because we've asked for seller financing a few times and they're just like, no way, I'm not doing that. Like people think it's risky or whatever, but it's not with multifamily, it's more single family.
Yeah, I mean, think about the psychology of the landlord that's owned this property for a long period of time, right? They've really gotten used to getting monthly payments, but now they want it without work. Yeah. And so if you find a convincing person that says, yeah, I'll buy it at the price that it's listed at, but I want to do it with seller financing, 0% interest. Now they get the monthly payments continuing on for a longer period of time. And it really works out. Yeah. Also, that I don't know this, but I would assume that you could count that as passive income.
Yeah.
And so you could still start deducting it over a long period of time.
Wow.
I don't know that for sure. I wish my dad was here.
Yeah.
But
I love that you have your dad to ask.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always have to say consult your CPA because we're not professionals in that part.
Yep, my dad's retired. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. What do you do short-term rentals? So I'm kind of curious about your take on what you see coming in the short-term rental. Jenny, she said in the groups she's seeing some people having some issues. What do you think is going to happen?
I think you're getting a lot of novices not knowing what the hell they're doing.
Okay.
And thinking, oh, this looks fun. And then they crap out and don't know what the hell they're doing. They're not turning it into a business. They're turning it into a hobby. Yeah. And that's kind of how I've seen it. And I mean, my wife works so hard on these short-term rentals. And that's the thing that I think is really lost in translation when everybody sees all these Airbnbs pop up. It's a lot of work. Yeah, and to maintain, as soon as you start getting 4-star reviews, you're out of the game.
Totally.
You can't do it anymore.
Yes.
And I'm very, very pleased with how my wife has run it. I think it looks awesome. And we have maintained 499, 495, and then we've only rented our primary residence a couple times now, but that's at 5 stars.
Okay.
And so it's not easy to just keep that up and maintain it. So to everybody that looks into getting into it, I'm just going to say it's not passive income.
No, it's not. That's why we've kind of strayed away from that. Yeah. So much work.
Yeah, but my wife loves it.
Yeah.
I remember we had a date night and we were sitting at a bar and I was trying to order something and I look over and she starts crying and I'm like, what? The first thing I think is, oh my God, did I do so? Yeah, I'm like, did I order something wrong? Yeah. So it's like, oh no, what happened? And so I'm like, what's going on? And she goes, I just got the most beautiful note from somebody that stayed at our house. I'm like, I was like, cute. You jerk. You never, I've said wonderful things to you for years. You never cry.
She put so much work into it. It's just, it's just validating all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I get that as a designer too. And somebody, like we've had people cry at our renovations. This woman who we renovated the house, and it was her, she sold it and came back and looked at it and cried because she was like, I didn't know my house could look like this. Mm-hmm. And this was just a renovation for a rental, so it was nothing crazy. Okay. But she was still like blown away.
Blown away, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just so validating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, she puts in a lot of hours and she loves every second of it.
That's
so
great.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I told her when it was an interesting dilemma, right? Because when we moved out of the Northeast duplex to Plymouth, my wife told me, by the way, we're not using any of the furniture you just bought at this duplex for the new house.
Yeah.
It doesn't, as you would understand,
Yeah.
it doesn't work in the new house.
Right.
And I said, well, I just bought all of it full retail. Like, I'm not going to take 30 cents on the dollar on all this stuff. And so I said, okay, well, maybe we should short-term rental it, but I don't want to do any of it. I have no interest in doing short-term rentals. I'm in your camp.
Yeah.
But you know, the extra revenue, in my opinion, is basically just paying the wages of my wife.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but we're just experiencing crazy cash flow on our properties.
Where is your Plymouth property? If you don't mind?
Yeah, it's very close to where I was, you know, where my mom was growing up, right off of 6 and 101.
Okay, that's because we were under contract for a property in Plymouth, and that was our exit strategy because it was going to be a high-end rental. And that was one of our exit strategies, short-term rental. I'm like, oh, and they're back on the market since their other offer fell through. I'm like, hey, maybe we should just try to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So
I will say that of all the cities that I've dealt with, and I haven't dealt with many. I've dealt with St. Paul, Minneapolis, Stillwater, and Plymouth.
Some hard ones in that list.
Yeah, Plymouth was far and away the easiest. It's the cheapest to get a license. I love Warren, who's the inspector. He's awesome, and we just the thing is in Minneapolis, very annoying. We got an inspection done. They said there was something wrong with the house, and then we had to wait 2 months. But it was like, I think one of them was smoke detectors in each bedroom, but then we couldn't get the inspector to come back until
I know, that's the issue.
until a couple months later.
Totally.
Warren loved this guy. So as soon as we applied for the license, it took 2 business days for him to show up to our house, and then he told us what was wrong. He on the spot rescheduled the re-inspection. Wow. And so then a week later, we got all the stuff done that he wanted done, and we had our license. It took us a week and a half with the city.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So
okay.
I can't guarantee that your short-term rental will run as smoothly.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Well, maybe your wife should think about running other people's short-term rental.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll work great. Okay, well.
I think she'd love doing that. Yeah, if anybody's interested, reach out to me and we can talk.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I think we could probably talk forever because you're a very interesting person. You have a lot of good things to say, and like I know people are going to take a ton of nuggets from this. So thank you so much for coming in. We'd love to have you on again sometime. And yeah, hopefully we can keep in touch. And you know, this is the amazing part about having this podcast. We meet new people, and we can, you know, allow you to tell people in Minnesota your experience. So yeah, I love it.
Well, thank you so much for having me, guys. This has been really fun.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yeah, bye guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it and took some valuable information out of it. If you want to reach out to us with comments or questions, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and our website, milagrohomesre.com.